my tender heart, lean in close. What I am about to say is not for the noise around you. It is not for the part of you that is still performing, still managing, still holding everything together with exhausted hands. What I want to say is for the quietest place inside you, the place you rarely visit because it hurts a little to go there, the place where you are not strong, not composed, not certain, the raw, honest, beautiful center of who you truly are. That is the place I am speaking to right now. Not to the version of you that woke up this day and already started calculating what had to be done. Not to the version that reached for the phone before your feet even touched the floor and felt that familiar dull weight pressing down before the day had fully begun. Not to the version that carries responsibilities so large they have become part of your identity, so that sometimes you forget there is a person underneath all of it. A real person with a real heart that has been waiting for something that is not another obligation, not another demand, not another performance standard to meet. I am speaking to the version that has been waiting a long time to simply be held, to not have to explain, to not have to justify, to not have to measure up to something. Come close. Come into this moment as you are, with all of it intact. The weariness, the uncertainty, the hope that still flickers, even when you tell yourself it has gone out. The love that still runs deep, even when you have stopped saying it out loud. The faith that still exists, even when your prayers feel like they are hitting a ceiling and falling back into your lap unanswered, or at least unanswered in the ways you expected. Bring all of that with you. Do not clean yourself up before you come. Do not perform readiness. Simply come. I see all of it, and I receive all of it, and I receive you. There is something I have been holding, waiting for the right moment to place in your hands. A truth so simple, it might feel almost too small when you first receive it. A truth so foundational that if you truly let it settle below the level of intellectual acknowledgement into the actual bedrock of how you experience yourself and your life, it will change the ground you walk on. Not necessarily the circumstances around you in an instant, but something more foundational than circumstances. The lens through which you interpret every circumstance. The soil in which every other aspect of your life is rooted. You are deeply, tenderly, completely loved by me, not as a concept, not as a comfort you reach for when everything else has failed and there is nowhere else to turn. As a living, breathing, present reality that is happening right now in this exact moment, in the exact place you are sitting or standing or lying down. My love for you is not something that waits on the other side of your performance. It does not increase when you get it right and decrease when you fall short. It is not rationed out based on how consistent your prayers have been or how long it has been since you last opened the book I gave you, or how many times you have succeeded at the things you promised yourself you would change. My love is the ground itself, the air you are breathing right now, the pulse in your chest that has been beating since the day I formed you and has never once required your conscious effort to continue. It was there before you knew my name. It was there in every season when you turned away. It was there in the darkest nights, when you were convinced I had forgotten you entirely, when the silence felt so complete and so long that you began to wonder if you had ever truly heard my voice at all, or if you had only imagined it. It was there in the quiet seasons, when nothing felt particularly spiritual, and yet you kept going. kept believing in some residual way, kept returning even without certainty. I was not absent in those nights. I was not absent in any of it. I was closer than you realized. Let me show you something. Let me take you back to the places that still carry weight, the chapters you wish you could rewrite, the seasons that left marks that have not fully faded, not to open old wounds, not to rehearse pain that belongs in the past, but to show you something you could not see when you were inside the pain, because there is something hidden in the very places you have been most afraid to look. There is evidence there, specific and personal evidence, of a love that was present when you were too overwhelmed to perceive it. And seeing that evidence changes something. It changes the story you tell about those seasons. And when the story changes, the weight changes to, I saw you in the middle of the season that nearly broke you. I remember the exact quality of that time. Not just the events, but the specific weight of it. The texture of what it felt like to be inside those particular days, when everything was pressing and nothing was releasing, and you were doing the best you could with what you had. And it was not enough by any honest measure. I remember the moment when you hit a wall inside yourself and felt yourself crack, not physically, something deeper. The sense that you had been carrying too much for too long, and the load had finally become more than your shoulders could manage without something giving way. You tried not to let anyone see it. You kept your voice steady in the conversations that required steadiness. You kept moving, kept fulfilling the things that needed fulfilling, kept showing up to the things you could not abandon. But inside, something was coming apart in a way that frightened you, because you had always been the person who held things together. And the experience of not holding together, of feeling the structure of yourself become unstable, was terrifying in its own specific way. It brought up questions about who you were without the stability you had always relied on. It made you wonder whether you were less than you had thought you were. I was there for every second of that, not watching from a distance with detached concern, not observing from some elevated remove, aware of your struggle but uninvested in it, present, actively, intimately present, the way a parent sits beside a child who is burning with fever through the long hours of the night. Not solving it instantly, because the timing of healing has a wisdom that impatience cannot access, but staying, keeping vigil, holding the space of care and love and absolute commitment through the whole difficult night, through every restless hour, through every moment when the child's eyes open and there is something there, something familiar and warm and constant to confirm that they are not alone in what they are enduring. That is what I was doing beside you. And the reason you made it through was not because you were strong enough. You were not strong enough. And that is not a failure or a deficiency in your character. It is simply the honest truth about what you were facing and what it demanded. I want you to be free of the lie that says you should have been able to handle it on your own, that a stronger person or a more faithful person would have managed it better. The reason you made it through is because I was the strength underneath you. When yours ran out, you felt empty, and you were empty of your own resources. But I was not empty. I carried you through in ways that looked from the outside like you were simply enduring. But endurance, true endurance, the kind that outlasts what the person enduring it can produce on their own strength, is almost always a hidden miracle. Almost always, it is the evidence of a love that refuses to let go. working underneath the surface of what is visible to anyone observing. I refused to let go. I have never let go. I will not let go. And I want to tell you something else about that season. The things you were afraid you would lose during it. The things that felt like they were slipping or had already slipped. Some of them did change. I will not pretend otherwise. Some things shifted in ways that were painful, and the effects were real and lasting. But what you feared most losing, the things most essential, the things that cannot be permanently taken by circumstance or difficulty or the passage of time, those things were protected. Sometimes protection looks like loss in the short view and only reveals itself as preservation over a longer span of time. Sometimes what appears to be taken is being repositioned. Sometimes what feels like an ending is the first movement of a beginning whose shape you cannot yet perceive, because you are still too close to the ending to see what it is preparing the way for. You do not yet have the full view of what that season produced in you. I do. And what I see when I look at who you became through it, the depth that was added, the capacity that was built, the understanding that no amount of ease could have generated. What I see is extraordinary, not in spite of what you went through, but because of it, and more specifically, because of the way I was with you through it, because of what we built together in those difficult hours. The things built in hard seasons are made of different material than the things built in easy ones. They have a density and a resilience that cannot be manufactured by any shortcut. They are the things that hold when the next storm comes. What was built in you during that hard time is still in you. Carrying that knowledge forward changes how you see what you went through. And then there was the other season, the one that looked better from the outside but felt quieter in a way that unsettled you. The season where things were functioning, obligations were being met. The surface of life was largely stable, and yet there was a strange dullness under the surface. A sense of going through motions, of doing everything that was required, and still feeling disconnected from something essential you could not quite name. A flatness that you could not explain to anyone because from the outside everything appeared fine, and fine was supposed to be enough. But fine did not feel like enough, and you wondered if something was wrong with you for finding fine insufficient. You wondered if you had asked for too much, hoped for too much. And this subtle flatness was just what life eventually became when the initial intensity of things settled into the long, ordinary middle. You wondered if everyone else felt this way and had simply accepted it without complaint, and whether your inability to simply accept it was a kind of ingratitude or immaturity. I want to tell you what was actually happening in that season. I was doing the slow, quiet work of healing something deep inside you. Not the kind of healing that announces itself with drama. Not the breakthrough that changes everything in a single powerful moment you can point to and say there, that is when everything shifted. The other kind, the kind that happens underneath the surface, in the root system of who you are, in the places so foundational that when they shift, everything eventually shifts, but the movement is gradual and patient and invisible to anyone looking from the outside, including often to the person it is happening in. You were not stagnating in that quiet season. You were growing roots, and roots grow down before anything grows up. Roots do not look like progress. They look like stillness, like nothing happening, like time passing without visible result. But they are the reason the tree does not fall when the storm comes. They are the reason that when the season of visible growth arrives, the growth is not thin and brittle and easily damaged, but deep and capable of holding real weight, capable of bearing fruit under pressure, capable of standing in conditions that would overwhelm something built on a shallower foundation. I knew what was coming for you ahead of that quiet season. I could see the road further than you could see it, and I knew that what was coming would require roots deeper than what you had at that point. So I did the preparatory work, the work you could not see because it was happening below the surface of anything visible, the work that felt to you like nothing was happening at all. Something was happening. Something essential and irreplaceable was happening. I was happening. I never stopped working on your behalf, even when I am most invisible to you, especially when I am most invisible to you. The seasons of apparent absence are often the seasons of deepest engagement. The silence that feels like distance is often the silence of someone leaning in very close, working with great care and attention on something that requires quiet and patience to do well. Do not judge the seasons that feel like nothing by how they feel from inside them. Judge them later by what they made possible that would not have been possible otherwise. Trust the seasons that feel like nothing. Something is always happening. There is a lie that has been whispering to you for a long time. It speaks in a voice that sounds almost reasonable, almost like wisdom, almost like the kind of honest self-assessment that a spiritually mature person would make. It is subtle enough that you have not always recognized it as a lie. It has sounded at times like humility, at other times like realism, at other times like the responsible management of expectations. The lie says that love has to be earned, that belonging is conditional, that there are things about you, specific and particular things that you know about, and that you hope I have not noticed, that if fully known and fully acknowledged would cause me to change my posture toward you, would cause me to withdraw, even partially, would change the quality of my attention or my approval, or the depth of my investment in you. It says that the love I offer is real, but that there are limits to it, thresholds of behavior or belief or consistency below which you fall outside its full operation. This lie has shaped so many of your choices in ways you may not have fully recognized. It is the reason you sometimes hold back in prayer, resenting only the version of yourself you think I will find acceptable rather than the full, actual interior of your life. It is the reason you have quietly avoided certain conversations with me, certain honest admissions, because somewhere underneath the theology you have studied and the truths you intellectually accept, there is a residual fear that full honesty might be too much, that if you brought all of it, the confusion, the anger, the doubt, the repeated failures, the secret thoughts, I might not receive it the way you need to be received. I want to confront that lie today with everything I have. There is nothing you could tell me that I do not already know. There is no corner of your history, no chapter you are still ashamed of, no thought that crossed your mind today that surprised me, no impulse you have given into repeatedly despite telling yourself you would stop, no failure that still makes you wessy when you remember it, no long season of distance or doubt or anger toward me that I have not already seen in full. I did not look away from any of it. I saw it all in complete detail with full knowledge, and my love did not flinch. It did not recalculate. It did not find the total too high. It did not discover a category of thing that falls outside its reach. My love decided before time began that you were worth everything, and it has not revised that decision based on anything you have done since. Now I want to speak carefully here because there is important nuance. I am not telling you that your choices do not matter. They do matter. Choices carry weight, and wrong choices have real consequences in your life and in the lives of the people around you. And those consequences are genuine and sometimes very painful. I will not minimize that. But there is a profound difference between saying that your choices have consequences and saying that your choices change whether I love you. They do not change whether I love you. The consequences may be real and they may be hard. The love is constant and unbreakable. These two things exist simultaneously and are not in contradiction. You were not created to earn your way into my presence. You were made to live in it. That distinction is everything, because one posture is exhausting and never quite feels like enough and keeps you at arm's length from the very thing you most need. And the other is rest, real rest, the kind that does not require everything to be resolved or cleaned up or improved before it is available to you. The kind that is accessible to you in the middle of the struggle, not only after it is over. The kind that does not collapse when you make another mistake, but remains because it is grounded not in your performance, but in my character and my choice. I am inviting you into that rest today, not as a reward for having figured everything out, not as something you access once you have made sufficient spiritual progress, as a gift freely given right now for you exactly as you are carrying what you carry. Uncertain about what you are uncertain about, still working through what you are still working through. The invitation does not wait for you to be ready. It simply waits for you to say yes, come and rest. I will hold the things you set down. I have hands large enough for everything you carry. The weight you have been carrying did not all arrive at once. It accumulated slowly, piece by piece, in ways that were almost invisible because each individual addition seemed manageable enough on its own. A responsibility added here, a disappointment quietly absorbed there, a grief folded carefully inside. You, because life did not pause long enough for you to properly sit with it. So you folded it up and stored it and kept moving forward because stopping was not an option. A fear that took up residence and then over time invited related fears. A comparison that lodged somewhere in your heart and grew slowly for years until it had changed how you see yourself in ways you barely noticed happening. Over time, the accumulation became the normal. You stopped noticing how heavy it was because you had been carrying it for so long that the weight began to feel like part of you. You started to confuse the weight with who you are rather than recognizing it as something placed on you or something that grew in you through difficult seasons. But that does not define you and was never meant to be permanent. You started to think the weight was you rather than something you had been asked by life or by others or by your own coping strategies to carry. I know what you are carrying, every specific piece of it, not in a general way, but in the particular way that sees your specific load, your specific history, the specific combination of things that makes your weight unlike anyone else's weight, even if some of the pieces are familiar. And I want to take it from you, not all at once necessarily, though I am capable of that, but in whatever way serves you best, with care, with full knowledge of what the load contains, and no judgment about the fact that it got this heavy, with the attentiveness of someone who sees exactly what needs to be set down and understands precisely what has made setting it down feel impossible. You do not have to carry all of this anymore. This is not a vague spiritual promise delivered without connection to your daily reality. This is an active, present invitation to begin the practice of release. To start today, letting go of the things that were never meant to be yours to hold permanently. The grief that needs to move through you rather than be stored in you indefinitely. The guilt over things that have been genuinely forgiven and are genuinely finished, even when they do not feel finished, and the feeling of them keeps returning. The anxiety about futures that have not arrived and may never arrive in the form your imagination has been rehearsing in your anxious moments. The old stories about who you are and what you are worth and what you are capable of. Stories written by people or experiences that did not and could not see you clearly. None of those things belong to you the way you have been holding them. You have been carrying borrowed weight, adopted narratives, burdens that were placed on you by circumstances or people, or the enemy of your soul, who knows exactly which lies will keep you most effectively held down. Set them down. Bring them to me. Put them in my hands. And when I say set them down, I mean the slow and repetitive practice of returning to me over and over the things that your hands keep reaching for and picking back up, because this is how release actually works in real human life. It is not a single dramatic surrender after which everything is permanently and neatly laid aside. You will bring something to me today and tomorrow, or even an hour from now. You will notice it has come back into your hands. That is not failure. That is not evidence that release is not working. That is the nature of the practice. The daily and sometimes hourly choosing one more time to bring it back to me rather than to carry it alone. Every time you return to me with open hands, I receive what you bring and give back to you the peace that is deeper and more stable than your own ability to manufacture or maintain it. Every single time, without exception. No matter how many times you have had to return with the same thing, no matter how familiar the load has become, no matter how embarrassed you are that you are back again with the same thing you thought you had already dealt with, I receive you every time as if it is the first time, with the same fullness of welcome, the same genuine gladness that you came. Let us practice it today, and then let us practice it again tomorrow, and again the day after that, until it becomes less like effort and more like breathing. Let me speak to you now about the people who are woven into your heart, because your heart carries them, and their weight becomes part of yours in a way that is both beautiful and sometimes overwhelming. There are people you love deeply whom you cannot fix. You see their pain with a clarity that sometimes hurts. You see their choices, and you can trace the arc of where those choices are leading with a certainty that fills you with a kind of helpless grief. You see the slow accumulation of consequence in their lives, and you feel something that is a complicated mixture of helplessness and grief, and something that approaches guilt, as if the depth of your love should somehow translate into the power to rescue, as if the fact that you cannot shift what they are doing or change what they are experiencing is evidence that your love has not been sufficient. Your love is not the same as your power. And that distinction, as simple as it sounds, is one of the most difficult things to actually live inside when someone you deeply care about is struggling in ways you cannot fix. Let me be direct with you about something that I want you to hold carefully. I love the people in your life more than you do. I know that sounds impossible when you consider the depth of what you feel for the people who matter most to you. Your love for them is real, and it is beautiful, and it is costly. It has cost you sleep and peace and a version of yourself that did not carry the worry of watching someone you love make choices that hurt them. But I am capable of a love that is without limit, completely undiminished by anything they have done or anything they are going through, untouched by my own needs or fears or weariness, because I have none of those things. I hold each person you love with that love in ways that your love, for all its genuine beauty and depth, cannot fully replicate, because your love is human and limited, and mine is not. You are not the answer for them. I am. And I want you to hear this, not as something that diminishes your role, but as something that can free you to be what you actually are meant to be in their lives. You are meant to be a person who reflects my love toward them, who stays present when presence is costly, who chooses them repeatedly, even when the choosing is hard and does not appear to be producing results, who offers the irreplaceable human connection that is one of the primary ways I make myself known in the world. You are not supposed to carry them into their healing. You are supposed to love them and entrust what you cannot do to the one who can do what is impossible for you. I know how hard this is in practice. I see you lying awake, thinking about someone who is not making the choices you know would help them, running scenarios in your mind, trying to identify the angle of approach that might finally open something. I see you rehearsing conversations that might shift something, carrying the anxiety of trying to say the right thing at the right moment. I see you placing the same person before me in the same posture of longing and concern, night after night, and wondering whether anything is actually happening on the other side of those prayers. Keep praying. Those prayers are not falling into silence. I hear everyone. I keep everyone, and I am working in places you cannot see, in conversations that have not happened yet, in quiet moments that are coming for that person, when my voice will finally have room to be heard, through means that would genuinely surprise you if I could lay them all out before you now. You do not see the whole field. You see one corner of it. I see everything. Your prayers for the people you love are accomplishing something real. They may not always be accomplishing what you expect or in the timing you want, but they are not wasted, not one of them. And while those prayers are doing their work, release those people into my hands with genuine trust, not as giving up on them, as the act of consciously acknowledging what is already true. The best possible hands for the people you love are not yours. They are mine, and I am more capable of their healing and transformation and redemption than your most faithful and most loving efforts. As genuine and costly as those efforts are, let me have them. Keep loving them. Live in the space between those two actions. That is the sustainable posture for a human heart that loves and cannot control outcomes. There is something I want to say about what you have been afraid of. Not the surface fears, not the ones you could articulate if asked, but the deeper ones that shape your behavior without always presenting themselves clearly enough to examine. The fears that have been operating below the level of conscious recognition. The fear that you will not be enough when the moment comes that requires you to be more than you are. That when the test arrives, the one that matters, you will be found lacking in some essential way. That the gap between who you actually are and who you would need to be will be too wide to bridge. The fear that the love you experience from me and from the people in your life is somehow provisional, somehow suspended on conditions that could shift, that there is a version of you or a scenario in your life that would finally reveal the limit of what others are willing to offer you. The fear that the good things in your life, the things you cherish, the relationships and opportunities and provisions that have come to you are fragile in ways that make them dangerous to fully receive, because receiving them fully would mean opening yourself to the grief of losing them. The fear that time is slipping and the window for certain things is closing, and that by the time you are ready for what you want, you will have missed it. I want to speak into each of these fears today, not to dismiss them as unreasonable. Fears rarely are unreasonable. They arise from real experiences, real losses, real moments when things did not go the way you had hoped or planned. The fears make sense given where they came from, but I want to offer you a different frame through which to hold them. Not a frame that denies their existence, but one that changes what they mean and how much authority they have in your daily life. You will not be alone in the moments that require more than you have. I will be in those moments with you. I have resources that are not limited by your limitations. The gap between what you have and what the moment requires is not a problem for me. It is an invitation for me to show you what I can do. When you stop trying to be sufficient in your own strength and start drawing from mine, the moments of your greatest inadequacy, the ones you fear most, are the moments in which I have historically shown up most powerfully in human lives. Not because I want you to suffer inadequacy, but because it is in those moments that you are most fully positioned to receive what I can give rather than what you can produce. The love you receive from me is not provisional. I have made that clear today, and I want to say it again in this context. There is no version of you and no scenario in your life that reveals the limit of my love for you. There is no threshold you can fall below that places you outside its reach. The love is not based on your performance and therefore cannot be revoked based on your failure. It is based on my character and my choice, and those do not change. The good things in your life are worth receiving fully. I know it is frightening to hold something with both hands when you have experienced loss. I know that the fully open hand is also the hand that feels the sting of something taken